What's going on, night timers? Welcome to the Saturday night stream. Saturday night of the Living Dead, as I've coined it. Tonight, it is Veterans Day. Salute. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. If you're watching along, uh, I salute you. You have bigger balls than I. But I figure what better way to celebrate Veterans Day than by watching the Crazies? Probably, I would say George, the one film that encompasses George's thoughts on the military and all that probably the most. It's probably between the Crazies and Day of the Dead. But I think the Crazies is probably more so, in my opinion, a closer to that than Day of the Dead because, I don't want to get into it already. I've been thinking about the Crazies a lot lately. I actually watched the Crazies, the remake of the Crazies from 2010 the other night, and got a stream coming up next weekend with John Grande of Grande's Graveyard. I'm really looking forward to that. I always love chopping it up with him, and I've been on his channel a couple times. This will be the first time he'll be on my channel, but we're going to be doing Romero remaking Romero. So I'm kind of going back and rewatching some of those remakes. Especially from around that time. The Crazies, the Dawn of the Dead remake. I haven't seen the Day of the Dead remake yet, but I'm kind of I don't know. I don't think I'm really looking forward to that one, but yeah, while watching the Crazies remake, the whole time I was just kind of in this, just always thinking like, man, I'd really rather be watching Romero's. And it's not a, we'll do a whole stream on it next week, but it's not a poorly made film, but it's not Romero, it's not George. So yeah, I figure what better way to celebrate Veterans Day than to sit down here and have a little watch along of George A. Romero's The Crazies from 1973. So yeah, I'm gonna do that tonight. Let's see what we got in the chat already. So Dirk, what's up, man? I was listening to Dirk's channel earlier today while I was doing a little cleaning and watching the kids. So happy to see you in here, man. Good to see you. So yeah, hope everything's going well for all you guys. I did drop the first episode of Entering the Dark Side on Tuesday. That was really fun to put together. I like doing the little videos. Like I love like the streaming like this is really, it's pretty easy. I wouldn't say easy. I mean, I've already fucked up my my thing here. Let me fix it. Let me fix my background. There is a little there we go. A little production to this sucker. But actually putting together the videos, like actually like recording them and then going in and editing them on the editing software and kind of getting ideas of like, I could throw this in there, I could try this, I could do that. It's kind of that creative outlet it gives me. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, I enjoyed those first two episodes. I got two more coming up on Tuesday, the episodes 3 and 4 from season 1 of Tales from the Dark Side. Haven't watched those yet, planning on watching them tomorrow night and then recording the video and hopefully getting it out by Tuesday, because the idea is to do one of these every Tuesday. It's going to be Tuesday, Tales from the Dark Side Tuesday. So that's kind of the idea of what I'm trying to do here with those, because it's a show I've never seen. I've never seen any of the episodes from the show, so I figure what better way to, introduce myself to it than doing instant reaction videos, instant reviews of each episode. But so far so good. The first two episodes, really, really enjoyed. A New Man, of course, episode 1 from season 1, and then I'll Give You a Million, the John Harrison episode, which is episode 2. Really enjoyed both of them. The next two that are coming up is Painkiller, which was episode 3. I got notes here. And The Odds, which I've heard good things about The Odds from Grande, actually. He's a big Tales from the Dark Side fan. He's one that kind of inspired me to do this to begin with, watching some of his streams on the show and listening to his reviews and his thoughts, and he seems to really like that one, so I'm really looking forward to checking that one out. But yeah, I'm hoping you guys. Like I said, I got a lot planned before the end of the year. A lot I want to do. Of course, part of the reason why I wanted to do something on the Crazies, like a Crazies watch along or something. I still may do more before the end of the year. Um, but it does kind of get swept under the rug a little bit because it is the 55th year anniversary of Night of the Living Dead, but it is also the 50th anniversary of the Crazies. Um, so I want to do a little something to, you know, to honor that film because it's one of my favorite Romero films. Yeah, I mean, budgetary wise, I mean, there's a lot of flaws and a lot of this and that, but I think just in terms, especially after going back and rewatching that remake, there's a lot about the original that just in terms of character wise, story wise, dialogue wise, just the ideas behind it. It's such a there's so much about it to think about, which is I think is one of the things that separated George from a lot of horror filmmakers. His films, there's always something else going on underneath the surface, something always deeper, and that's 100% what it is with the Crazies for me. So it's one I've always enjoyed. I remember the first time. Actually, remember the first time I ever saw the Crazies. The first time I saw anything from the Crazies was on that the American Nightmare documentary that aired on IFC back in 2000, 2001. I get it mixed up, but that was the first time I saw any like footage from the Crazies. And you see these guys in these white suits like invading houses and hotels and like pulling people out and kids crying and stuff, and just like, what the fuck is this? I didn't even know it was Romero at first. Because of course that documentary was just using clips from all kinds of horror movies, not just the ones that they featured. Because of course they featured, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Texas Chainsaw, all that. But they would also feature stuff from like Maniac with Joe Spinell, the Crazies, a lot of Cronenberg stuff, stuff from like Videodrome scanners. That was the first time I saw anything from the Crazies, and I was just like, that looks so like out there. And like I said, I didn't even know it was Romero at the time. I just saw these clips of these guys in these white suits and gas masks and all that, and I'm just like, I had to track that down. And then I discovered that it was a Romero film. But I mean, this was back in the day, and of course, in a small town in Kentucky, we had a few video stores, some mom and pop stuff. They didn't have it at the local Blockbuster, that's for sure. But they didn't have it at any of the little mom and pop shops. There was one that I used to go to all the time, which is where I discovered a lot of my favorite horror films back in the day. You'd go, and it was one of those deals where you could rent 5 movies, keep them, and there's VHS. Rent 5 movies for $5, keep them for 5 days. So that's what I would do. I just rent 5 movies, watch them all, take them back, and keep doing that over and over again. And I saw some really bad, shitty movies doing that. But I mean, it was a little bit of a education. But at the time, none of these stores had the Crazies. I didn't see it anywhere. But I have family a little bit north of where I grew up in a town called Madisonville, Kentucky. It's a little coal mining town. And we would go up there every weekend. I mean, there was a mall in Madisonville, and that's where we spent every Saturday. My family would gather at the mall. There was a Godfather's Pizza in the mall. My family would gather. We'd order a shitload of pizza. It was like a hillbilly Italian family gathering, I guess. But, order a shitload of pizza and just hang out. And I random. That's probably why I fell in love with Dawn of the Dead as much as I did when I first saw it as a kid, because I could identify. It was always the idea of like, because in some ways that mall did kind of feel like ours, because I mean, we were just kids, and our parents would be like, here's $5. Here's $5, go play. And we'd go, and whatever we could get for $5 we'd get, candy or little cheap shit from the Dollar Tree. So anyway, we'd go to Nashville every weekend, and every now and then I'd stay up there, and right down the road from my grandparents' house there was a video store called Circus Video. And I'll never forget this place because it was the first place I saw a lot of my favorite films for the first time. I was able to rent them. I remember that was the first place I saw where anybody had Demons, the original 1985 Demons. It was the first place I rented Suspiria. That's where I saw Suspiria for the first time. They had probably one of the best horror selections that I had seen at the time, and they had the Crazies. So staying with my grandparents, me and my cousin, we'd go to Circus Video right up the road. We rented all these movies. I think we rented 3 movies that day. One was Suspiria. One was Lucio Fulci's Zombie. And the third one was The Crazies. and we went back to my grandparents' house and we watched them, and of course it was VHS, so it was not the greatest quality. And I remember watching the Crazies, and there was like a few things, and we'll touch on it as we're watching. There were a few parts of the movie, I mean, that really stuck with me and my cousin that we just thought were really, really funny, like the lady sweeping while the dead bodies are laying everywhere, and she's just like sweeping up, behind them, and like little things like that. So the first time I saw it, I liked it, but I mean, it's hard to watch, when you're younger and you're watching it with other people. And I think, my aunt was in the room at the time watching it, and she was just like, "What is this? Like, what is this old cheap horror movie? What are y'all watching?" But years down the line, I remember I ended up picking up that DVD that Blue Underground put out years later, and rewatching it then, and I just watched it over and over again. The commentary track on that DVD with George and Bill Lustig, of course, who directed Maniac Cop, and Uncle Sam. It's a since we're in a patriotic mood, I'll bring up Uncle Sam, I guess. But yeah, well, just a great DVD, and really, that's where my love for this movie came. I don't even remember where I got that DVD, but I still have it. But yeah, so I've always been a big fan of this film. I think it's one of George's. It's definitely a cult film. It's one of those films that like people know, but they don't celebrate as much as the rest of us. They definitely don't celebrate it as much as Dawn, Day, Creepshow, even Martin to an extent. I think it's one of those movies that you either really enjoy it, or it's one of those it's like, it's good, but it's so flawed that it's hard to kind of get around it. But the flaws, I mean, like I said, mainly budgetary. I think the editing in this film is fucking amazing. I think it's some of George's best work. And talking to Larry back at Living Dead weekend this year, we're talking about the Crazies. He did kind of a little panel on the Crazies on the Friday that I unfortunately had to miss. But just watching the menu screen now, it's got the old lady with the sewing needle. Sorry if you hear my child screaming. She's not in a good mood tonight. But yeah, just talking to him, I mean, it's an important film because it kind of taught Romero how to shoot action with very little to no budget. The pacing of the Crazies is very reminiscent of Dawn of the Dead. Just the quick cuts. I mean, just the hundreds of setups on this. I mean, just hundreds of different shots in this film. And that's where, I mean, I think that's in terms of like independent horror films, like when you watch a low budget independent horror film from this time, like a lot of them are really, really slow because they're just trying to capture, what the big Hollywood films are doing in terms of like, drop the pin, caught it. In terms of like, acting and pacing and stuff like that. Where George, I mean, his background with commercials and editing commercials and trying to, put together these quick, get information across in a short period of time and in the fastest, most effective way possible, I think really helped him. And I think that it really starts to come together for him here on the Crazies. Now, the Crazies, of course, was not a huge success when it came out. Poor distribution, poor promotion. Nobody really knew what to make of it. Like, it's a horror film, but it's like guys in white suits and the Crazies. That's the thing about that remake that I don't, that they kind of missed the point on this one is like the villains in this film are not really the people that are infected by the virus. It's more so the military's response to it type of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was just a weird, and I've heard interviews with, I think it was an interview with Lee Hessel, who was the distributor for this, There's Always Vanilla and Season of the Witch. And he didn't really know how to market it either. I mean, I think they first released it as the Crazies and then tried to re-release it as codename Trixie. And neither one really sold, and that was just kind of it. And then it kind of got rediscovered later on in the 80s during the big VHS boom. And as a matter of fact, it's all the way over there. I'm not going to grab it, but I do have that original VHS release when it came out, because I think it came out right around the same time that they released Season of the Witch on VHS 2 back in the 80s. I'm trying to think who did it. Vista, I think, released that. Oh, fuck it. I'm going to grab it real quick. Hang on, I'm going to grab it. Shit, I rolled up on a cord. Hang on. In a cordless world, I have plenty of them. I'm old school. I'm cords. I'm all about the cords. Um, so yeah, Vista Home Video. This I got the box release here, and I bought this just. I buy everything Romero, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. Um, but this is the cover that I remember seeing at the video store that day, and just thinking like, holy shit, there it is, you know. So there is some like sentimental value to it for me. So, but yeah, and this is an original script. The original idea was by Paul McCullough, who worked with George and Russ and Jack Russo and all the late Image guys for years, and then went on to continue to work with Russo and Bill Heinzman on later films like Midnight, Majorettes. I think he was a part of Majorettes. Flesh Eater, I know for sure, and he also did the score for Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, Night 90. So, um, so yeah, a name that people should know in the Romero universe who did a lot, contributed a lot to these films. So okay, I think I'm gonna stop rambling on. I'm gonna hit the play button on here, and we're gonna start watching George A. Romero's The Crazies from 1973. So yeah, before I do that, if you're watching this for the first time, I appreciate it. Give the stream a like, give the video a like it. You'll like it. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you're a big George A. Romero nerd like me, yeah, subscribe. And then there's like a notification bell. So if you're really into me and you want to know exactly what I'm doing every hour on the hour, whatever the hell I'm doing, it'll notify your phone. So you could be sitting, you could be sitting in church, or I don't know if people that'd be watching me would be in church, but I don't know what they'd be doing. Okay, you'd be sitting at the bus stop, we'll say, and you're sitting there waiting, blah blah. You're on your phone, your Wordle or whatever you're doing, and all of a sudden you'll get a ding, and it's like, Alpha Romero's doing this, and you're like, holy shit, I got to go there now, and you miss your bus, and don't do that. But yeah, it'll let you know when I'm up to, so yeah, and then we get done with all that bullshit. Let's get on to the movie. This is The Crazies, 1973. If you want to watch along at home, I'll do a little countdown. I'll hit play, and then we'll hop on. If anybody has any questions or anything you guys want me to talk about while we're watching this, let me know in the chat. Don't be shy. And let's see. So yeah, if you want to sync it up at home, go ahead. I'll give you a second. All right. Okay, so I'm ready if you're ready, and we'll do a little countdown here, and then we'll hit play, and then we're going to be watching George. Hang on real quick before I do that. Plug my cord into the other sound outlet over here. Hang on, it's dark. I can't see what the hell I'm doing. All right, there we go. All right, let me make sure this volume's down a little bit. It's kind of hard sometimes when I'm doing a watch along. I guess I could do it with subtitles, but I kind of like to hear what's going on as well. It's kind of hard to do watch alongs for me because I get sucked in with the shit going on in one ear. That's why I'm going to keep one ear out so I can kind of hear what the hell I'm saying. Because I don't know if you ever try to talk to somebody while you got headphones on, but it feels like your words are jumbled up with whatever you're listening to, and it fucks with your head. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. All right, we're going to do a countdown here if you want to watch along. All right, and 3, 2, 1. Here, we'll do 3, 2, 1, play. Okay, 3, 2, 1, play. All right, Red Farmhouse. Here we go. Let's See, Dirk, to be honest, I need to rewatch Martin. I only watched it once, and to be fair, I will give it another go. Yeah, I mean, I've often said Martin. I love Martin. It's probably my second favorite film ever, if not just Romero. I love that film. Every time I watch it, it changes my mood. It's a mood changer for me. But yeah, give it another watch, man. Especially now that Second Sight 4K is out. I've heard people complain that the transfer's not the best, but I mean, it's a fucking 45-year-old movie that was shot on 16 millimeters, so it's never going to look great. But one way I would suggest watching it is watching in black and white. Turn the color out of your, or turn the color off on your screen or whatever you got to do. Try watching in black and white. It's different. It works differently for me that way, but yeah, it's definitely not for everybody. See, Dirk says Romero's Crazies. I haven't seen him probably 10 years at least. It's been a little bit for me. I'd probably say it's been close to 2 years since I last watched it. I remember I watched it right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I watched it right in the middle of that, and it just, it really hit home. I'll say it mirrored so much, and it was just like, holy shit. It made me like the film a whole lot more, because you could kind of just look on TV and watch the news and be like, holy shit, like Romero was right. This is how we would fucking respond to this if this were to happen. So yeah, we're getting the house set on fire now, and we're getting into it. So the kids in this, I believe, were Bill Heinzman's kids, the cemetery zombie from Night of the Living Dead. Not sure who the guy is that's losing his shit and setting the house on fire. Not sure what his name is, but this house that's burning here, there's some great behind the scenes footage on the Arrow Blu-ray that they put out a few years back. And I do believe it's the only behind the scenes footage that exists from this film. And it was taken by Sam Nicotero, who's Greg Nicotero's uncle, who actually has a small role in this. So this movie is also kind of the introduction to the Romero world for the Nicotero family. This is Lane Carroll and Will Macmillan, both unfortunately no longer with us. I think I had William comment on a video here recently reminding me that Lane had passed away, because I'd kind of forgot. I know that she had been at one of the Living Dead weekends a few years back. It may have been for the 45th anniversary of the Crazies. I remember they had a little celebration there. I think Richard France was there, Lynn Lowry. I think the interesting thing about especially around this time period, in terms of like George's style and the way he kind of started his films, George loved to just drop you right in the middle of the shit. Like, there's no build up, there's no like slow, setting the mood, setting the scene or anything like that. It's like the Crazies. Within 5 minutes, kids are on fire, house is burning, and the shit's already going down. Martin, you dropped right in with Martin on the train. You don't know who he is, what he's doing. You're just along for the ride. You're just like, okay, I've been dropped into this. It's kind of like Google Earth. It's like when you take the little guy in Google Earth and you just drop him on the street that you want to look at. That's what Romero does when you're watching his films. Dawn of the Dead, same thing. Dawn of the Dead opens literally in the middle of chaos at a TV station. People arguing, easy for me to say, arguing and screaming at each other. Zombie Grease in the house. What's up, my man? Good to see you in here, sir. Let's see. Dirk says that remake I look at the same as I looked at the Texas Chainsaw 2003. Just too much Hollywood gloss on those, in my opinion. Plus, can't stand Timothy Olyphant. Man, I'm telling you. Like I said, next Saturday, I'll be doing a Romero remake retrospective type show with Grande from Grande's Graveyard. And I just rewatched that remake probably for the first time. I saw it in theaters when it came out, and then I remembered absolutely nothing about it here. So I went back and rewatched it, and yeah, I completely agree. It just felt like there was just not a lot to it. Like I was really bored more so than anything. But I don't want to give too much away. We're going to discuss that in detail next week with Grande. Zombie Grease. I really wish they'd do a 4K version of Day. I would be completely fucking shocked if that doesn't happen. I mean, Scream Factory at this point is probably the one that's going to end up doing it. And of course, Scream Factory's at that point now where they're just pretty much re-releasing everything that they've already released on Blu-ray in 4K. I mean, they've done it. They just did it with Creepshow. They're doing it with the Tales from the Dark Side of the movie. That 4K is coming out. So the Day 4K, I would be almost 100% sure that that's coming out soon. So, not sure when, but I mean, of course, we're 2 years out from the anniversary of Day of the Dead. So maybe they're waiting for that. I don't know, but I would be shocked if it's not too far behind. So now we've so yeah, like I said, we're being dropped right in the middle of it. The military's taken over, setting up shop in this little hospital here in the small town of Evans City. It's like Evans City is, of course, most known for Night of the Living Dead, just because of the cemetery and all that. But the Crazies is probably more so of an Evans. Like if you go to Evans City, Pennsylvania, it's like everywhere you look, it's just like, oh, that was in the Crazies. That was in the Crazies. This was in the Crazies. It's like that entire town was used for this film. So they're putting on gas masks. I love this actor. I can't think of his name right offhand. The guy who plays that Ryder, the military man there. This is Loyd. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I want to say it's Loyd Hollar, but that just sounds. That sounds like somewhere that like UB or CK from Dead Pit. That's where they would be from. Loyd Hollar, Kentucky. But he's an interesting actor. I would have loved to have seen more from him with George. I think he would have been an interesting choice for Peter and Dawn of the Dead. That's what he kind of reminds me of in this film. He kind of reminds me of a Peter-esque type of character. And that's the thing about George. I mean, more often than not, the black characters in his films are the more like put together, clear thinking, clear headed characters that kind of have a plan and are kind of in control. And that's par for the course here. So I find it interesting in this too that the main characters, of course, are two former military guys. The guys played here by David, played by Will Macmillan, and his partner here, played by Harold Jones. Former military guys now just kind of, middling as a volunteer fireman in Evans City. I don't know how much that pays. I don't really know what their day job is. Usually volunteer firemen do other things on the side, but and I think about, these films too. It's like these feel like real people. It's different, Like talking about there's too much Hollywood polish on the remake. Those didn't feel like real people. Like Timothy Oliphant doesn't feel like a guy who would be living in wherever that took place in Iowa. I don't want to sit here and talk about the remake all night, but it's fresh on the brain. Now, of course, they're trying to justify the fact that they could be in this room without gas masks, so they're saying, the ultraviolet light wards off the virus, which is complete bullshit. Um, but again, it's like perfectly like pandemic. I mean, think about it. We're just coming up with these ideas out of our ass, just like, oh, this ultraviolet light will protect us from this virus, because I don't know if it's airborne or what. I mean, of course, we find out that it's spilled into the water supply, so it was taken, orally. So ingesting it, yeah, but they don't know. See, Dirk says that blue on day ain't bad, but I get it. 4K is the luxury format. We are so spoiled now, myself included. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Scream Factory too. Is a lot of their Blu-rays look fine. They look great, but I will say their 4Ks. I mean, the ones that I purchased here recently, the Creep Show looks fantastic in the 4K. What was the other one that I got here recently from Scream Factory that looked really, really good? Um, I recently watched the Escape from New York 4K that Scream Factory did, and it looks amazing. That was one I was actually just like blown away by. Zombie Grease, I recently saw an 8K version of Jaws. Interesting. We're getting there, folks. We're getting to 8K now. Very strange. It loses all film grain. It literally looks like the film was shot in high def 4K digital. It looks more real than real. Where'd you see that at? I'd love to check that out. I don't know if I've ever seen anything in 8K. I feel like maybe I've seen like a music video or something on YouTube that was an 8K video, but yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a movie in 8K or even that option. Let's see, Dirk, how did you see that zombie? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking. Yeah, was it in a cinema? I guess they are capable of 8K in cinema now. Fuck, I don't know. I'm not spec savvy like that, I guess. Which edition would you say is best for the Crazies, Arrow, or another label? That Arrow is really, really good. The Blue Underground did a fantastic job as well. I've always been a fan of Bill Lustig and that company. I think they do a really good job restoring a lot of these films. I mean, they were one of the first to start doing it back in the day. I mean, you remember this, Maniac. I mean, they put out a lot of stuff back in there, especially a lot of the Italian stuff, like it's a lot of the Argento stuff. But me personally, I would say that Arrow is probably the best way to go. Really cool features on there as well. Then again, I don't think the George Bill Lustig commentary is on that Arrow 4K, or not 4K, but Arrow release of the Crazies on Blu-ray. So it's kind of like if you're interested in seeing it in terms of like transfer wise, the best looking transfer is going to be the Arrow. And like I said, there are some really good features on there, but I do think that the commentary with George and Bill Lustig is only available on the Blue Underground release. So, and that one looks fine. I mean, like I said, it's the Crazies. It's a 50-year-old movie shot for very little money, so it's only going to look so good. So they're starting to figure out that shit's not going right, not going the way that they would hope for the night. Zombie Grease makes it look like it was shot yesterday. See, that's what interests me. Like that's one reason I really love watching old films in 4K, because it cleans them up to the point where it's almost like it's easier to show maybe a younger person who doesn't quite have the sensibilities. Because I mean, shit, most people now, if you try to show them anything in black and white, or if you try to show them anything from the 80s, they're just like, wow, this looks, dated or whatever. But I think the better transfers, the better these things look, especially a lot of the John Carpenter stuff. I mean, a lot of those 4Ks look like they were just shot yesterday. And I can imagine Jaws already looked fantastic on Blu-ray. So I can't imagine what 8K Jaws look like. Dirk says, only 8K I've seen was at Best Buy. What was the 8K at Best Buy? What do they have on 8K? Do people even have television? I mean, I guess there are 8K televisions out there, aren't there? At some point, it's going to be like that episode of the Creep Show, the new Creep Show series, where we're just going to be transported into these films, virtually or whatever. We're just going to be standing there in the room watching everything going on. It sounds outrageous, but I would not be surprised if that's the way we're headed with everything. Dirk says just a demo on an 8K TV ocean scenery. Okay, so yeah, 8K TVs are out there. How much does that shit cost? Out of my price range, I'm sure. I've been looking at the OLEDs here lately. Maybe upgrading, trying to find a deal. I know that I think Best Buy has a deal on an OLED TV this year for Black Friday. Because my TV is starting to act out a little bit. See, I love all this stuff. The back and forth here between the Washington, the politicians, the guys in charge. And I think that's the thing that, when I say, this perfectly encapsulates George's feelings on the military and all that. I don't think George is saying that it's, soldiers that are the issue. I don't think that's his issue at all. It's the people at the top making the decisions. That's where shit goes wrong. So now we're cutting back and forth here between the scientists, here played by Richard France. He's pretty much playing the same exact role that he played in Dawn of the Dead, the guy screaming for sanity. And going back and forth between him and the politicians, the bureaucrats, the geniuses making the decisions here. It's like the soldiers are just carrying out the orders that their idiot, superiors are. I mean, it's perfectly, perfectly shown here with the Loyd Hollar's character, Colonel Peckham. The whole movie, he's just like rolling his eyes, like, what the fuck are we doing? Dirk says 5,000 was the cheapest, but they'll drop eventually. Yeah, they're gonna have to drop a whole lot for me. like the ones that they have on sale at Best Buy. And these are just the OLEDs. I think they're on sale. They're gonna be on sale for like 500. Even that's a little steep for me. I mean, it's for But I mean, that's probably as cheap as you're going to find something like that for now. I mean, unless you wait, like you said, over time, everything kind of will drop eventually. But there'll always be, once those drop, there'll be a fucking 16K TV that you can smell the fucking screen. Scratch and sniff screen. That'll be next. Zombie Grease, the two 4Ks I want are The Thing and The Lighthouse. The Thing I have, and it looks fantastic. The Thing 4K looks amazing. I haven't seen The Lighthouse 4K. A buddy of mine's a huge fan of that movie, and I think he has it, but I haven't seen it. I've seen the movie, but I haven't actually seen the 4K of it. See how that looks. But yeah, The Thing looks amazing in 4K. Hey, there's a cameo from George. Quick little cameo from George, rounding up everybody. This Zillion Opal motel here is no longer there. And I look because one of my first trips to Pittsburgh, one of the plan was I was going to find that hotel and stay at it. But it's no longer there. I think they tore it down years ago. But see, a lot of this footage is what I saw. The first footage that I ever saw of the Crazies. in that American Nightmare documentary. So many shots. Like the guy stealing the fishing pole here, the dog shot, literally a dog shot. I mean, George in the commentary talks about, you know, what he calls dog shots, where it's just like a shot of anything, a plant or a dog, literally, just to kind of break up the action. I always love this little kid here fighting back against the soldier, and a little kid with a little toy gun. Like there's something just so effective about that. The way that that little kid with the gun freaks out and starts crying when the soldiers come to pick him up. That always had an effect on me. Always affected me. I was like, wow, because it looked real. I mean, it looks like documentary footage. I think that's the thing that separates this movie from a lot of movies, is that it feels like a documentary, just the way that it's shot, cut, paced, you know. Now, of course, the cop standing here, that's I believe that's Sam Nicotero, Greg's uncle, who shot the behind the scenes footage of the house burning down. That's available on that Arrow release. And you can get that Arrow Blu-ray for pretty cheap now. I think you can get it brand new for $15. I've seen it in places. And Colonel Peckham makes his entrance. Now that reaction there when Colonel Peckham takes off his gas mask and they see who it is, and the reaction of the mayor and the police officer there. It's interesting to me. I never really caught on it before, but are they reacting that way because it's a black guy in charge? It's a small town, Evans City, which in real life, I think Evans City at the time was not too happy, especially at the end of the movie when the fucking Colonel Peckham takes all his clothes off and changes clothes out in the field, you know, when the credits are rolling. I've heard George say that there was a bit of an uproar in the town, and the local townsfolk, just that there was a naked black guy out in the field, out in public, which is ridiculous, but. Now loading them up, we're introduced to Lynn Lowry and Richard Liberty. Now, a lot of these actors went on to work with George in the future. Of course, Richard Liberty from Day of the Dead, you know, Frankenstein, Dr. Logan. Lynn Lowry, this was her only time working with George, but I mean, she was in everything back in the day. I mean, she was just kind of the cult film goddess or whatever back in the day. I don't know what you want to call her. I always had a crush on her. I always thought she was a really, really good looking woman. But of course, she's, you know, the Crazies. She was in I Drink Your Blood, Cronenberg Shivers, Sugar Cookies. I think she went on. I think she even had a cameo role in the Crazies remake, which I noticed for the first time the other night. She's the girl riding the bicycle through town when everything starts to go to shit. But yeah, Lynn Lowry, I mean, I met Lynn Lowry back in 2008 at the Texas Frightmare weekend that year. Had her autograph. I don't know why. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. It was my first convention, so I was just like, I'm going to get everybody to autograph my Texas Frightmare weekend poster. And she was the only autograph I got. So I just have a Texas Frightmare weekend poster with Lynn Lowry's signature on it. I wish I would have got just like an 8x10 or something, but she was very nice. And of course, Harold Wayne Jones there, everybody. I love him in this, but I mean his scene in Knight Riders where he's doing the Marlon Brando impression. Very memorable scene. So he went on to work with George again. But that was the thing, like, growing up watching George's films, I always had this notion, I guess because of like Tom Savini and his regulars, his guys, Savini, Gornick, etc. I always had this like idea that George only worked with the same actors and the same people on every film. And that just was like never the case. If you really think about it, I mean, you look at the main four cast from Dawn of the Dead: Ken Foree, Scott Reiniger, Galen Ross, David Emge. Never really worked with them a whole lot. I mean, Foree he worked with again, a small role in Night Riders, and that was it. Same for Reiniger. Emge he never worked with again. And Galen Ross he worked with on Creepshow. She had a small role in Creepshow, and I think she had a small role, not acting role, but just a role behind the scenes on Day of the Dead as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, George didn't really like to go back to the same. Like you think of Scorsese, and you think of, De Niro, and you think of DiCaprio, and you think of the guys that he likes to work with, that he does a lot with. Same for like Tarantino, Rob Zombie. I mean, Rob Zombie only casts the same people in every film, no matter what it is or what they're doing. But George didn't like that. We never saw Dwayne Jones again in any role. Jan White from Season of the Witch, never saw again. Ray Lane worked with him twice. That was it. Now, there were some that were a little more recurring than others, but Laurie Cardille, we never saw Laurie work with George again, unless you want to count Iron City Ass Kickers. But same for this. Lane Carroll, Will Macmillan. This is their early time working with George. This way, chat. Dirk, I'm pretty biased as The Shining is my favorite film, but that 4K is my personal favorite. Yeah, that's one I need to see in 4K. I don't know why. I remember seeing that in Jaws in 4K at Walmart a year and a half ago, maybe, and it was on sale for like $10. And for whatever reason, I was just like, it's Walmart. They'll have more copies. It'll be fine. And then I went back and they were both gone, and I've never seen them since. And I can't find, I haven't seen them. I mean, I'm sure if you go on Amazon or something, but I'm one of those guys that I like to kind of discover things out in the wild more so than anything. I like to go look at, the mega replay stores, what we got here. We got around here in southern Indiana, western Kentucky. That shit's starting to break down here. But yeah, I need to see that 4K of The Shining, because I love The Shining. I love Kubrick. Kubrick's one of my all-time favorite filmmakers in general. Talk about a timeless filmmaker. I mean, any of his films, I mean, they look, you talk about look like they could have been made yesterday. I mean, even all the way down to like 2001, Space Odyssey. I mean, that was like 20 years ahead of its time, maybe, in terms of just the effects and the way that film looked. And I don't give a fuck what Stephen King says. The Shining is a great movie. Sorry it didn't follow your fucking story. But we saw your version of The Shining, that TV version. That was fucking horrible. So maybe leave the filmmaking to somebody like Stanley fucking Kubrick. I don't know. Not that I'm sour against Stephen King or anything. I'm a Stephen King fan, but I never understood his dislike. I mean, I get it. It didn't follow your story 100%. Like, who cares? Like, it's fine. Here we go. You ain't taking me no place. And see, the brilliant thing is about the Crazies that I've always found more interesting than if this virus or whatever just like turned them into like in the remake, they're just like homicidal psychopaths basically who are just looking to kill everybody. They just make you crazy. You're not looking to kill anybody. You're just doing crazy shit. You're just crazy. You've lost your mind. Now, you don't know who's crazy and who's not. And that's the brilliant thing about this film, is that you don't know who's infected with the virus and who isn't. Now, these people, obviously, they've got the virus. They're crazy. This girl's playing the piano. The guy with the gun looks like he's about to have a nervous breakdown, and then grandma's upstairs knitting a sweater while, the military is raiding the house and shooting everyone in sight. So yeah, these guys are crazy. But later scenes when the townspeople are starting to fight back against the military, it's like, are they crazy or are they just people fighting back against the occupation of their town? Are they crazy or are they just reacting to the situation the way that people would react to the situation? People would react like crazy people. So the horror of this film is not in the fact that these people want to kill everybody or anything like that. The horror of it is the fucking overall chaos that's going on, that's being on this little peaceful town. Oh, I love this fucking scene. The granny stabbing the guy to death with the knitting needle. You see the little ball of yarn rolling on the floor while this guy tries to climb out of the room and scream for help. And the look on Granny's face when she's stabbing the guy. Hello. Love it, love it. That's one of my all-time favorite Romero scenes. Just the look on that woman's face. It's fucking hysterical. I need to grab more Romero. Yeah, you do, man. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You can never have enough Romero. Trust me, I got a whole wall of it here. I'm not saying go that crazy, but there's a lot of good Romero releases out there. Of course, the big brouhaha that everybody gets into is why we haven't had a Martin or a Dawn release in the U.S. since the DVD days. Though there was a Blu-ray of Dawn in 2007, I want to say, from the Anchor Bay DVD. It's pretty much just a Blu-ray port of the Anchor Bay DVD. That's all we've gotten in the States since. And, we were actually having a conversation about this, me and Larry Lawrence DeVincent at Living Dead Weekend this year, about just why Rubenstein's just seems to be holding those films hostage at this point. And he just wants to strike a deal. From what I've heard and from what Larry understands, it's like he's trying to strike a deal for both films, and he's asking for more money than most of any of these boutique companies are going to ask for or offer. Second Sight did it, and they did it right. I mean, if you don't have the Second Sight releases of Martin and Dawn of the Dead, highly recommend it. Even if you don't get the big box set of Dawn of the Dead, just the regular release of that, that's a beautiful transfer. Great features on that as well. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I know that I've listened to Michael Felsher's Slippy. I've heard him talk about there's a good possibility that that Bruiser's on its way out with a new release. I would guess that Vestron is probably going to be the one behind that, because that's a Lionsgate title, and Vestron releases most of the Lionsgate stuff. So now we get banjo music here, which is an interesting music choice. That was the thing about George too, is his odd musical choices, his library music and shit. But yeah, I know there's some stuff coming out. I do know that there's a Night of the Living Dead 90 4K release coming out soon. I'm still waiting for the official announcement on that one. But yeah, there's stuff coming out. There's stuff out there. But like I said, it's hard to find anything Martin, Dawn. You can typically find Day of the Dead out there. That Scream Factory release, not too hard to find. But just a lot of his stuff's just hard to find, period. For whatever reason. Outside of like the creep shows and stuff like that. Love this stuff that they shot here in the foggy early morning. Now here's where you get to see a lot of Evans City. Of course, the post office. I've been to that post office. I think there's like a short of it on my channel. But just an iconic shot of the American flag in the background with the post office and the soldier sitting there with his rifle. But yeah. Dirk says, I go to TFW every year. Great con. Yeah, I mean, that was my first convention, 2008. It was the 45th anniversary of Night of the Living Dead. They actually had an anniversary screening in Dallas that year. George was there, Malcolm McDowell, Tom Savini. I mean, it was an amazing experience for how old was I at the time? 19-year-old kid who had dreamed of meeting all these people and never been to Dallas. I mean, I've never been that far away from home by myself. I wasn't by myself, but I was with, my cousin and his girlfriend. And that was the farthest I'd been away from home, and it was an amazing experience. I love Dallas, by the way. I loved being in Dallas. Had a lot of fun in Dallas. That was the only time I've ever been there, though. I need to get back. The drive there sucked. Driving through Arkansas and all that is not a good time, but yeah, that's the only one I've ever been to. Some great scenes here with Richard France and Loyd Hollar. Daddy, won't you take me down to Loyd Hollar? It really does sound like a fucking holler in Eastern Kentucky. Loyd Hollar. That's probably not even how you pronounce his name. It's probably like Loyd Hollar or something like that. So Richard France pretty much trying to plead his case to the military here. And the most interesting, there's actually new merchandise, T-shirts and shit on the Garf website for the Crazies. There's a T-shirt and it has this quote on it, and I think I wouldn't mind picking it up. But just basically, you either end up incurably mad or dead. Those are your two options when you get this disease, and it makes you think like, what would I rather be? Just insane for the rest of my life, or just dead? Like that's it's a shit sandwich right there, ain't it? And like stuff like this is what was missing from the remake that I really missed. Just the back and forth, like between science and politics and military, and trying to figure out how to fix the situation, how to handle everything. There really wasn't any of that in the remake. Well, this was shot at a country club in Pittsburgh somewhere. I can't think of the name of it offhand, but this is the first real big scene for Lynn Lowry in this film as well. And of course, it starts to like subtly, hint at maybe she's got the bug, just from her dialogue and the way she's handling things right now. She always reminded me. Lynn Lowry always kind of looked like a little bit like Sissy Spacek to me. Her little bitty nose. She's kind of got that Lynn Lowry nose going on there. So yeah, now he's getting suspicious. Like, oh, this bitch is nuts. But is she? Who knows? Dirk, where are you going? Timestamp. Just finished House on the Edge of the Park. I am right now at 39:42, 43, 44. So yeah, right around 39:50 right now. So. the thing about the Crazies is, and it's the way that I've mentioned this before, but I think it's in the way that George kind of handled the subject matter. But there's a lot of really dark shit in this movie. There's a priest who sets himself on fire. The father-daughter rape scene that's coming up. I mean, it's stuff that would, on the surface, you'd just be like, geez, what kind of cheap exploitation shit is this? But it's done, it's done well enough that it doesn't, it's not that it's not as effective. Um, it's still effective, but it doesn't dawn on you. It's done with taste, I guess. I don't know. So now you're starting to wonder, if any of these guys got the bug, So now we're pretty much about to find out that David's character here was a Green Beret. So long before John Rambo, there was David here. Green Beret, fighting authority. Fresh out of the military. And of course, I mean, geez, this film came out like almost immediately after Vietnam. So we're still like fresh. I mean, that's when the public's trust and belief in the military and government was pretty much at an all-time low. It was right around this time. Evans City's only Green Beret. So he's basically a former military guy, former Green Beret, who's kind of wised up to military and military industrial complex and the way that military's run, and he's pretty much disillusioned with all of it. So if ever there was a guy that would be up for fighting back against the military, it would be this guy. I mean, it would make sense. He's not. So yeah, now the townspeople are starting to fight back. This the this little thing that he does with the pencil here is just, it's like little details like that. Here, just right there, that those little details are just like stuff that Romero would put into films that like a lot of like low budget horror filmmakers at the time just wouldn't even think of throwing in. Like, why would I shoot that? Why would I put that in the film? But like I said, it's like George's editing in the way that it's the way he shot back then. That's what he did. Dirk says, hippie love and peacetime. Yeah, that's right. Take the mic and kick back here. Sorry, just make it. Feel like lean back into the darkness. Bingo. How can you tell who's infected and who isn't? Fucked up my computer there. Sorry. All right. But yeah, that's the brilliant thing about this film to me, is how can you tell who's infected and who isn't? And it felt like maybe that idea was just too ambiguous of an idea for the remake. I don't know. Because it was fairly easy to tell who was infected and who wasn't then. And see, like, there's so much detail in these issues. George does a great job explaining, like, why things are at the point that they're at, why things are not getting solved, why things aren't working. No organization, no planning. Nothing amazes me in this goddamned army. So now we're about to see the cameo appearance from Bill Heinzman here. There's definitely big respect to all the veterans' sacrifice. Absolutely. Like I said, this film to me is more about the incompetence of the people at the top, more so than the actual soldiers and the people that actually serve and have to, carry out the orders of the idiots making the decisions at the top. Which is what, like I said, that's what George was trying to say with this. It's like, yeah, you could, there are some poor, like right here, like the burning of the bodies and the soldiers stealing stuff, and you're always going to come across that, but that's human nature. That's people right there. Oh, one's gone crazy. It's got the bug. I guarantee you they just layered that guy up and set him on fire. So they don't know that it's in the water. So they're still drinking the water. So you got to kind of remember who knows what in this movie. Richard Liberty does a really good job of playing a frantically crazy person, which I guess is why Romero casted him in Day of the Dead in the role of Frankenstein years later. Now, this church, what's the name of that church? It's in Mars, Pennsylvania. It's still there. It still looks pretty much exactly like it did, even on the inside. I haven't been on the inside. I've seen pictures of it, of what it looks like recently, and it still looks exactly the same. This little area here where he's running down the stairs out into the parking lot with the gasoline, all that looks pretty much exactly still the same to this day. And see, the idea, why is this priest setting himself on fire and burning? I mean, of course, at this time there was the monk that set himself on fire uh, in protest to the Vietnam War. That was a big thing on the news back then. So that was obviously inspiration for that. Now this guy throwing this like fucking dynamite or whatever he's throwing here. For the longest, I thought that was Carl Hardman, but it's not Carl Hardman. But I thought it was for the longest time. But here's that fucking crazy ass woman with the broom sweeping up the mess out in the field. Pitchfork. They used the pitchfork death in the remake. I'll tell you that. Now the gore in this, I mean, this movie is fairly bloody, especially for 1973. A lot of squibs. This really is probably the goriest Romero film up to this point. It's Crazies here. But sorry, a lot was going on there. I was getting a little sidetracked. I don't remember what my original fucking point was. So yeah, basically we're at the point where we're at a civil war here between the military and the locals. See, now that's fucked up. That sounds like setting the mother and father on fire in front of the child. That sounds like something out of one of those like August Underground fucking movies or something. But yeah, going back to that priest setting himself on fire, it doesn't answer the question. Like that's the thing about this movie; it doesn't really answer the questions of like, are these people crazy or are they not, or are they just going crazy because they're being pretty much invaded and quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it? Is the priest protesting or well, you know, you don't really know. Is he crazy? Possibly. Here comes the shootout with the helicopter. Dirk says, "Damn, it's been too long since I've seen this. This is probably close to George's most underrated. I think it is. Like I said, it's definitely a cult film. It's probably one of George's most cult films. It's one that is appreciated, and I think a lot of people like, but it's not main. It has like no mainstream. Like other than that remake being made, like nobody. I don't think anybody had ever heard of the Crazies until that remake came out. I mean, you know, normal population wise. But I think it's very underrated. Like I said, I love this movie. This is definitely probably top 5, top 6 of my favorite Romero films. It moves the pacing. There's always something going on. It's cutting back and forth between multiple points of view of what's going on, from what's going on with the military to what's going on with Richard Francis' character in terms of just like the scientific aspect of it to the survivors aspect of it, the people trying to escape. And like I said, most of the flaws are just typical low budget horror movie flaws. But from what Romero is able to accomplish and what he's able to do with such small budgets around this time, I mean, for this, I'm not sure what the budget is on this, but it wasn't a lot. Very small. But I mean, the budget for Martin, we're talking $90,000 for Martin. Dawn of the Dead, I think the real budget for Dawn of the Dead, I think Rubenstein has said is right around 600,000 bucks. George's films, he always was able to get the most out of every dollar. That's what made him a great independent filmmaker. But yeah, definitely an underrated film in my book. I always like this scene because those woods, the woods where they're at, always kind of reminded me of the woods that we used to play in when we were growing up. Like, in the wintertime, dead trees. I've heard Mark Borchardt from American Movie, filmmaker, director of Coven, and it's Coven, not Coven. Coven sounds like oven, man. But he always talks about one of the things that draws him to certain films is the look, the aesthetics of it. And this is definitely in that vein where Mark Borchardt always talks about dead trees and gray skies, and it looks like somewhere that we've been, somewhere where familiar that we know. It's not art directed within an inch of its life, I guess. Down goes the chopper. So now they pretty much gathered everybody at the high school, and of course, when you gather people in large numbers in a small area, in a situation like this, it's probably going to be a lot of chaos, not a lot of organization. So again, who of these people are crazy and who aren't? There's no way to really tell. That was Mike Gornick. Small cameo. This is the first film he actually worked on with George. Of course, Gornick went on to be George's DP for years, and eventually went on to direct Creepshow 2. I do find it funny that these scientists are trying to work with high school science class shit. It's like the stuff that they use to dissect frogs with. They're here trying to look for the cure for for the virus that's going to lead to the end of the world. See, subtle things like the back and forth between him and the guy on the radio. And the guy on the radio, there's all these uh, precedents and protocols that he has to go through to just do something as simple as connect him with Colonel Peckham, voice recognition, and all this other shit. And it's just like, this is the bureaucracy that gets in the way of progress. Even in situations like this, there's red tape. What's the matter with you, woman? It's like Richard Francis' characters found his equal, met his match in terms of attitude. Falls in love. See, just a small little moment like that just adds a little levity to everything that's going on. It makes you kind of like Richard, because Richard Francis' character, through this whole movie, he's just been kind of, not a pain in the ass, but I mean, he's just, like I said, been pleading for sanity, and that's all we really know of him and his character at this point. So having that little moment with him and I guess she's the science teacher at the high school. I don't know who she's supposed to be, but so now some of the soldiers are starting to lose it. They're infected. Oh, here's that scene I was talking about earlier with the small cameo from Bill Heinzman, the cemetery zombie here. He's the shooter. Kind of hard to tell because there's not really a close-up shot of him here, but it is him. R.I.P. And of course, Bill Heinzman's a filmmaker in his own right. Directed such classics as the Majorettes and Flesh Eater. starred in Flesh Eater as well. I had never seen it. I started to watch that the other night. I got through about 15 minutes of it. I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right frame of mind for this movie tonight. So basically, they're on their way trying to break the, or how do they put it? Break quarantine, get the hell out while they can. And the only reason they're choosing to do this is because of their distrust in the military, because of their own experiences in it. So it makes sense that they would fight back. They caught a wabbit. Yeah, I know. Flesh Eater has a 4K. Was that Vinegar Syndrome did that? Which is not surprising. But I don't see any reason in the world why that movie would have a 4K. Although I will say the makeup and special effects on that film were done by Jerry Gergely, who is now like the head guy at the Tom Savini makeup and effects school. I met him at Living Dead Weekend a couple weeks ago. He's an amazing makeup artist, and the work that he did, I think that was one of his first jobs, was Flesh Eater, and the effects in that are not bad. I mean, for a cheap, low budget horror film, I mean, I bet he didn't have much of a budget to work with, but for what he did, I mean, I thought they looked pretty good. But just everything else about that movie was just not that. Like I said, I don't think I was in the right frame of mind for that movie. So I'll try to go back and rewatch it. I'm gonna have to at some point. Now this guy's toupee is one of the worst I've ever seen in a movie, I think. Not him. That guy obviously has no hair. But this other guy, look at his fucking hair. That toupee looks like it was made from like horsehair, like thread or something. I don't know. What is that? That's one of the worst wigs I have ever seen on a human being. Wig alert. The most distracting part of this movie to me is that dude's fucking wig. He literally looked in a mirror and said, I look good. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Romero. But were toupees more common back in this time for men? Because I feel like I remember hearing stories about all kinds of people that just wore toupees all the time. And a lot of them you wouldn't even have guessed. Anyway, I'll get off the toupee. Dirk says shit looks great. Looks amazing. He just went ahead and killed him. Yeah. So he's playing pretty much just a cold-blooded killer at this point. Harold Jones's character here. And now we're starting to wonder if he's, crazy, or if he's just if he's crazy, or if he's got the bug. Just two separate things. Because aren't we all crazy in some way? I think that's kind of the idea of this movie. We're all kind of a little fucking nuts. In a situation like this, who's to say how he would react? Don't knock that wig off. Who does this guy look like? He looks... The guy with the fucking wig, he looks like somebody. I can't put my finger on it, but he reminds me of another actor. Oh, now here we go. Great squibs in this, I will say. 1973 reminds me a lot of like kind of the squibs and stuff and like Peck and Paw stuff. But this is a fairly bloody movie for 73. Dirk says, I bet he had all the ladies throwing their panties at him. I don't know about that. Maybe, I don't know. Fuck. You get a look at that head of hair, and how could you resist? Who would want to run their fingers through that paint job or whatever you want to call it? Shit was painted on his head. He looks like Pee Wee Herman's cousin. Yeah, kind of. I can see Pee Wee Herman. There's like a Paul Rubens connection there visually. So we're pretty sure David is okay. I don't think he has the bug. Judy seems okay, but the rest of these guys, they all seem to be kind of out of it. But who knows? It's funny, that outfit kind of reminiscent of the SWAT outfits from Dawn of the Dead. Little bit. Now, this reaction here from Harold Wayne Jones, I always thought was interesting. It almost felt like something was missing. It's like he runs into the room, and now it's like head spinning. Yeah, head feels funny. Is that like reaction to the virus, or I think he's starting to realize that he might have the bug. As a father of a daughter, I've experienced that a couple of times, and I reacted just like Richard Liberty here too. So now we're going to get this monologue from Richard Liberty, and probably going to start to reveal that he's not all there himself. So during this period, there's, of course, the box set that Arrow put out, Between Night and Dawn. It's got it's little box set of Blu-rays of There's Always Vanilla, Season of the Witch, and the Crazies. And I would say out of those three films, the Crazies is the closest to what Romero, his style, what he would go on to become. Those are all very different films. And I think it's a very interesting box set to go through and watch chronologically and see the progression of George as a filmmaker, and to see, in terms of content, just how different those three films really were from each other. Like, There's Always Vanilla is like its own separate thing. It's not a horror film. It's, and Season of the Witch is technically kind of a horror film, but it's not. But it's more dialogue driven. And to me, Season of the Witch is maybe my favorite Romero film in terms of the dialogue. I think some of the dialogue in that film is brilliant. And then the Crazies is like the first step George took towards making Dawn of the Dead and making Night Riders, and being able to make like these fast-paced, quick films. Quick films, I don't know what that fucking means, but you know what I mean. Upbeat, fast-paced films for low budgets, basically. Which a lot of filmmakers just can't do. I mean, the lower the budget, think about it. The smaller the budget, think of like Clerks or something. Like Clerks was shot for, I think, what he maxed his credit cards out at, $25,000 or something like that. And for $25,000, he was able to make that film because pretty much that entire film is just a one camera, straight ahead, like setup of like dialogue between people. Like, there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot to cut to or worry about or do. So in comparison to what George is able to accomplish with his small budgets, with this is more than $25,000 for sure, but even this feels, way bigger than like a Clerks or something, which is point of reference. But then again, Kevin Smith really didn't know what he was doing when he made Clerks, so it was just the easiest way for him to get his dialogue on screen, I think. No, so it's funny, the actor playing the president here feels like it's supposed to be a Nixon-esque character. It kind of sounds like Nixon. So here they're establishing the idea that the military has planes flying around Evans City at all times, ready to drop a bomb if needed. Which Larry pointed out when I talked to him at Living Dead Weekend. He pointed out and reminded me, because I swear I feel like I've heard this before, but I completely forgot all about it. But the original ending, and when I was at the Romero archive in Pittsburgh a few weeks ago, I did see the original screenplay for the Crazies. I believe it was still called The Mad People on the front of that screenplay. But I did see the original screenplay. I didn't read it just because time crunch. Trust me, I would love to read the original screenplay of the Crazies. But in the original screenplay, the film actually ends with the military dropping the bomb on Evans City. Which is kind of how they ended, the remake. See, Dirk says, I really dig Season of the Witch. Just got that Arrow Blue from that Shocktober sale. Yeah, and Season of the Witch, just for reference, Season of the Witch definitely is one that the first time I saw it, I didn't really care for it. But the first time I saw it, it was that, early Vista home video VHS. Looked really shitty. You couldn't hardly hear what the hell was going on. You couldn't see what was going on. So it was one that I didn't really ever care to go back and watch. And even the DVD that Anchor Bay put out that had There's Always Vanilla as the it was like a flipper disc, and on one side there was Season of the Witch, the other side there was Always Vanilla. Even that one, it looked fairly rough. It was kind of hard to really watch. But that Arrow, when Arrow put that one out on that Blu-ray, it looks amazing, and it really puts it into really makes it more watchable and more palatable, I think, because you can actually take in the film for what it is and not be so distracted by a lot of the issues with it visually. So this is a very very odd and uncomfortable scene here between Richard Liberty and Lynn Lowry. The father forcing himself on his daughter, and here's Clank to the rescue. But see, like on paper, if I told somebody I'm watching a movie and I list everything that happens in the movie, they're gonna think that I'm watching some cheap, well, maybe it is a cheap exploitation film, but you know what I mean. Really rough stuff in there. So things are starting to break down here between the group. So yeah, pretty much they're all nuts except for Dave and Judy here. Dirk, is it me or did it seem like she liked it? Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting point. Because that could play into the whole have they both just completely lost their fucking minds at this point? Because even Richard Liberty's character, when he's in the middle of it, he's like all about it, and then like at one point, it's like he comes to and realizes what he's doing, but then he kind of can't help himself but to continue. It's just like that's interesting. Yeah, that's. But hey, how lucky was old Dr. Frankenstein there getting to fill up Lynn Lowry in her prime? That's one thing we need to give Richard Liberty a round of applause for. I mean, of course he's in Day of the Dead and we love him as Dr. Logan, but that may be the peak of his career. That may be the high point of his career is filling up Lynn Lowry. Which I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that was a very unique thing back then, but I'm sure it was for old Richard Liberty. Oh. Well, he went out on top. Does a great job of playing a guy that a dead guy that hung himself. Though, we'll give him that. So here's one of my absolute favorite scenes of this film. Lynn Lowry out here with the sheep. And then it pans over, and there they are. Military moving in. And then this coming up where she's just kind of talking to him. They're kind of surrounding her, and she's just going up to him like, do you want to play? Now, nobody ever said that Lynn Lowry was a great actress. I've never said that. But she's nice to look at, and I thought she actually does a good job in Cronenberg Shivers. That's probably my favorite performance of hers. the bit of like the monologue at the end of the film when she's like telling the guy the story of her dream. It's like, Roger, I had a very disturbing dream last night. I was making love to an old man. He was old and dirty, and he smelled bad. Just the whole thing's just weird. It's just a creepy bit of dialogue. And then, of course, the fucking turd comes, that's what I call it. It looks like a piece of shit. It comes, spewing out of her mouth. Oh, love that line. I don't know why. When she gets shot, and then falling over. Here they come. But yeah, I don't know. That's what it looks like. It looks like, Shivers is absolutely one of my favorite Cronenberg films. It feels very Romero-esque. Just people trapped in this high-rise apartment, It's a Cronenberg. It's Cronenberg's version of a Romero film. We'll say that. Hell yeah, but he was no. I'm sure he. I don't think they had to pay him extra to do that. I'll say. Shivers is great. Yeah, I love Shivers. That's another one that I first discovered watching that American Nightmare documentary. If you haven't seen that documentary, I'd recommend it, Dirk. I think you'd really like it. It was on IFC years ago. I'm sure you've seen it, but if you haven't, I think I actually posted it on my channel a few months back. So it's up there if you want to check it out. But it's my all-time favorite horror documentary. Kind of shaped the man that I am today in the way that I watch horror films. Oh, here's Steph now. I guess that's what she meant by it. It's just like, oh. But she's nuts, so who knows? I love there's a shot coming up here where he shoots one of the soldiers in the head, and it just looks like the head just explodes. Now, the decision to go with... Oh, right there. Fake head just set up on the tree like that. But I think the decision to put these guys in like the all-white suits and stuff with the gas masks makes this film seem way bloodier than I think it would otherwise. Because you really see the blood on these suits. Which also may have been why Romero made this film as bloody as it is with all the squibs and stuff like that. Because with the white suits, I mean, you're going to get shot. If you're in a black suit, you get shot. You can just kind of, and then you're not going to see the blood anyway. But in the all white, I mean, you kind of have to show the blood. Oh, there we go. Oof. Are they all dead? Now, the gunshot here, the squib on the back of his head here in a second, I always thought looked really, really good. Now, I don't know who did the effects on this. It wasn't Tom. Savini hadn't hooked up with George at this point yet. I guess I could look it up, but I'm going to try to think back into my my memory bank, my Romero memory bank. I want to say it was maybe Gary Zeller had something to do with these. I'm not sure. I don't know if it would say on. I don't know. Maybe I'll look it up later. That's like the slowest death ever. Just like, oh. Here comes the headshot. Oh, and the spurt there. So that looks good, man. I don't know, 70 for 73. And the way that the blood keeps coming, I mean, I think that's a good. And I know with the way that his arm is up, there's probably a tube running up and all that, but well done for 73. Dirk says, haven't seen it, but I'll check it out for sure. Oh, if you haven't seen American Nightmare, I definitely highly recommend it. It came out in like 2001, I believe. That was the first time I saw it, was 2001. It pretty much just goes into horror and the way that horror kind of changed from Night of the Living Dead on, and incorporating it with what was going on in the country at the time, with like Vietnam and sexual revolution, and the effects that the effect that Cronenberg and John Carpenter had on that, and just all kinds of stuff. It's a very entertaining and very interesting documentary. I highly recommend it. Said, yeah, it's solid. Let me get the headshot. Yeah. So yeah, now we have. So this is the part where. So this is where Richard France kind of discovers the cure. He's found something in this blood sample. Now I've always taken it at face value. I've always interpreted this as he has found something. There is a cure here. There's something going on. So I've always taken it at face value that he has discovered a possible cure for this. However, talking about it with Larry back at Living Dead Weekend, we were talking about this and all that, and he kind of brought up the point. It's like, did he really discover a cure, or is he going crazy as well? And he thinks he's seeing a cure, but he's actually out of his mind. And I had never thought of that as being a possibility until then. And then it was like, it does make sense. He takes the mask off. He's working closely with it. And of course, he takes off here with the samples. And of course, the lack of organization here with this whole thing is. So let's say he does have the cure, and it would. I mean, it would probably be difficult if you're running through the hall with vials of blood saying, "I got a cure." It probably would be difficult to convince these guys who are having to deal with all these crazy fucking people to begin with that you're not crazy as well. And there he goes, and boom. And there goes that. We'll never know what he found. So was he crazy? Did he have a cure? We'll never know. And I'd never thought of that until Larry brought that up. Dirk says, have you seen When Evil Lurks? High recommendation, maybe the best film that's come out this year. I've heard of that, and I've heard from several people that I would like that, and I need to check it out. It's one it's on my list. I actually, a buddy of mine saw it in theaters. They were playing it at a theater here when it came out in Owensboro, Kentucky, and he went to see it, and he immediately texted me and was like, "Dude, you need to see this." And I was like, well, I'm probably not going to get to the theater to see it, but when it comes out to stream or whatever, text me and reminded me. And he just the other day texted me and was like, hey, just a reminder, that movie came out that I was telling you about, and you should check it out. I'm like, okay. So it's on my list to watch. So I'll definitely be checking it out here soon, because I've heard really good things about it. And I've been pretty disappointed in a lot of the stuff that I've seen this year. Like, Talk to Me. Like, I know a lot of people really like that movie, and it's gotten great reviews, and it's gone on to be like the highest grossing A24 film ever made, which is mind blowing to think about. But I just didn't care for it. I didn't get it. Like, there's just too much missing for me. There's just what I don't know. I just wasn't my cup of tea. And I can't really think of too much other that I've seen this year. That Scream 6 was fucking terrible. That was horrible. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think I've seen too much that really blew me away. Beau is Afraid. I really like Beau is Afraid. I don't know if you'd call it a horror movie, though. It's more of a... I don't know what the hell you would call Beau is Afraid. It was interesting, though. It was definitely kept my attention. There are definitely some horror moments where you're, I guess it's that Ari Aster, anxiety-based horror is what I call it. But so yeah, David's pretty much. I guess Judy's now starting to show signs of being nuts. So David's got a plan. Now, this coming up is another thing that if you put on paper and said, this is what I'm watching a movie with this, and this, and you say, oh, at the end they kill the pregnant lady, you're just like, what the fuck is this guy watching? Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this, but Dirk said, yeah, he seems nuts. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I never thought about it. I thought maybe he was just like frantic because, hey, I found a cure. I need to get this to the right people. But maybe he was fucking out of insane too. So that's pretty cool. See, Talk to Me was okay. One time watch, really. Yeah, I mean, I will say this about Talk to Me. I thought the ending was really well done. I thought the last like 5-10 minutes was really interesting, and I kind of like the way that they ended it. But up to that point, it just didn't work for me. Infinity Pool, that was another one I was a little disappointed in because I was a big fan of Brandon Cronenberg's movie Possessor. I really liked Possessor when I saw that. And then Infinity Pool, there's a lot. Trust me, there are things about that movie that I still think about to this day. There are certain aspects of that movie that will just pop into my head and be like, oh, yeah. So I don't know. That's one I need to watch again, I think. I saw it in the theater and I had really high expectations and I left kind of disappointed. But I feel like I need to go back and rewatch Infinity Pool. Because like I said, there are definitely quite a few moments in that film that still kind of pop into my head from time to time, just in regular daily life for no fucking reason. It's just one of those things like burned into your mind. Like just weird things. Like when she's jerking the guy off and it's got that close up of the fucking jizz hitting the rocks, and it's just like, did they have to put that in there? But that pops into my head every now and then. I'm just like, specifically when I like spit on the ground, it'll pop into my head. Like when I'm out and I just spit and it hits the ground, I'm like, it reminds me of that scene from fucking Infinity Pool. So that's another. I think that's one I need to go back and rewatch when I get a chance. Beau is more of a pitch black comedy with horror elements, I'd say. That's a good way to describe it. Pitch black comedy with horror elements. Because there were definitely moments in the theater when I was watching, because it was an interesting movie to watch in a theater with a bunch of people. And I feel like a lot of the people that I watched it with knew Ari Aster, knew it was an Ari Aster film, and they knew, Hereditary and Midsommar. So watching that, I don't think people really knew how to react. Like there were moments of like uproarious laughter followed by like shock. Like I don't know. That's another one I need to go back and rewatch. And I need to buy that. I've seen it on like Blu-ray out and about, but I haven't picked it up yet. I have a feeling that A24 is going to do like a a special edition release of that to try to recoup some of the money, because I know that they lost their fucking ass on that movie. I believe it's the biggest budget film that A24 ever made, produced. And I there's no way it made its budget back or even came close. That movie was just too fucking weird for mainstream audiences. And I've heard from a couple people that saw it that, like, when they immediately after they got done watching it, they didn't like it. They hated it. But then as it, like, kind of grew on them in their mind, they kept thinking about it, and they've liked it more that they've let it settle. But that's probably my favorite movie that I've seen this year, actually. Is Beau is Afraid, because that was just a completely different experience. Now for something completely different, that type of thing. So Judy's been shot. Now, are these people crazy, or are they just, revolting townsfolk who are attacking him because he's dressed like a soldier? They think he's one of the soldiers. That's one thing I will say. The Crazies is a film all about unanswered questions. You don't know, and you never really find out. And of course, in typical Romero fashion, very down ending. Especially for this time, I would say. For this period, a very down ending. Down endings were Romero's forte back in the day. Even Dawn, of course, everybody knows Dawn was supposed to end with, Peter and Fran killing themselves. But he kind of reversed course on that as they shot the film. So now everything has been taken from David. His best friend has been taken from him. His woman's been taken from him. His unborn child has been taken from him. So now, the question is, he's never acted like he's gotten the bug yet. But is that because, as a Green Beret, he's more held together than most people would be? He can keep it together in situations like this, so he's not going to act crazy? Or is he naturally immune to the bug? We don't know. And he's not going to tell. Which is probably the most tragic part of this movie. Is that there have been opportunities to solve the issue and save the day, but it's not going to happen. All right, Dirk said, Infinity Pool, I had to process that film, but I felt it's more ambiguous than people think. Like, are the clones taking over the identities and the real people killed? Yeah, trust me, it was definitely an interesting film, and like I said, I still think about it to this day, and I think it's a really interesting concept. I think the biggest issues that I had with that, I just felt like it was just too, almost, it went too far at times, and not in like, oh, this is bad taste or anything like that, because there's definitely some shit in that movie that some people would consider bad taste, I'm sure, but not really that. I just think that maybe it went so far out of the realm of reality that it's like my biggest issue. Another movie that I saw this year that I really, really didn't like was Skinamarink. I don't know if people out there have seen that Skinamarink yet, but I thought Skinamarink was a very interesting concept, and I think it could. There's an idea there, and it could have been done better with a more capable filmmaker. See, I love that look. It's almost like he's got that look like, yeah, I got the answers to all your problems, but you're not getting them because fuck y'all. but but yeah, the thing about the Skinamarink movie, I think the concept was interesting. I thought, there was something that could have been done there, but I don't think that they pulled it off as well as they should have or could have. And I thought the idea that as soon as they kind of give away the idea that this is not taking place in reality, it kind of lost me, and I was just like, so why do I care to continue watching if I know none of this is actually happening? But anyway, so that's the Crazies, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting choice of music here, I will say. See if we identify any familiar names or. So they're shipping Peckham out to I forget where they say that he's there's another breakout. So Vince Rubinsky, Bill Heinzman. So the DP on this film was Bill Heinzman. Forget to mention that. And of course, the original script, Paul McCullough. George rewrote. So I think in the original script, it was more of an action adventure type. George kind of wrote more of the conflict and the ambiguity. That's of like, are these people crazy? Are they not? I think that's more of the George side of it. Heaven Help Us by Beverly Bremmers. There's actually a 45 single of this song out. I want to find it. There's the 45 single of this song. Actually, on the side says from the motion picture The Crazies or something like that. I like that. That's interesting. But yeah, there we have it. George A. Romero's The Crazies from 1973. One of my favorite Romero films. I like I said, going back and rewatching this during the pandemic was really an eye-opening experience. Made me appreciate the film a whole lot more. Made me appreciate George as a filmmaker a whole lot more, and George is a visionary way more, because it's almost like George could see this shit coming a mile away. Like when the shit hits the fan, like, are we as prepared to handle it as we pretend that we are? I don't think so. And that's pretty much the premise of the Crazies. That is hard to pick out the Crazies from the normal. That is, yeah. And that's the whole point of the film. That's the whole idea, is that in situations like these, it's hard to tell the difference between somebody who is infected with a virus that turns them crazy and somebody who is just reacting to the situation as one would react in this situation. You'd fight back. You would. You're seeing people dying all around you, left and right, and yeah, it's enough to make anybody lose their mind. And yeah, in real life as well, absolutely. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell who's got the bug and who doesn't, and that's still rings true to this day. But yeah, that was fun. Happy Veterans Day, folks. Glad to, Dirk, it's been fun with you, man. It's good having you in here watching this with you. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, next weekend, Saturday night, I think I'm probably planning on trying to do it maybe an hour earlier. But I'll have Grande from Grande's Graveyard in here with me. We're going to be talking about Romero remakes and giving our thoughts on Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, the Dawn of the Dead remake, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead from 2004, the Crazies remake from 2010, and then Steve Miner's magnum opus, the Day of the Dead remake from 2008, which I haven't seen and I still have to watch. And yeah, not looking forward to that, but I think it'll make for interesting conversation. So yeah, that's next Saturday night. Me and Grande's Graveyard. Tune in for that. Should be a really fun stream, really fun conversation talking about all that. So looking forward to that. And yeah, that's it for me. I got some videos coming out too. Some pretty cool stuff. There's an interview with Joe Pilato, a pretty lengthy um, Joe Pilato interview special feature that's never been seen or released in the United States. I'm going to try to put that up, hopefully, unless I get a smack on the wrist from YouTube. But yeah, got that. Got plenty of other stuff up my sleeve for the end of the year. Got a lot of inspiration, a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff coming down the pike here soon. So, uh, but yeah, it's been fun. Hope you guys have a great rest of the night, great rest of the week. And as always, as a great man once said, and we will continue to carry into the future, as always, stay scared. Night, everybody. Happy weekend.